Few groups of people in history have had the collective experience of traveling all over the world like people in the military. And with all of those, it's got to be billions of cumulative experiences, it's not a big surprise that some of them have run into some pretty freaky situations. Welcome to the In-Between. I'm Carol Ann, and today we have stories running the entire suite of paranormal subjects, all brought to us by soldiers who are lucky enough to have lived to tell the tales. This soldier is unnamed in this story, so we'll call him Ken. Ken and his platoon are slogging through the Vietnamese jungle. They're exhausted, soaked to the bone, and they've got this river that they have to cross. It's already a sketchy situation because they are deep in enemy territory and the jungle around them is thick and alive with sounds they can't quite identify. Now, to get to where they need to go, they have a choice of either going the route that they planned on or take this shortcut through even deeper jungle territory. If they take the shortcut, they'll save themselves a good chunk of time. But it is also known that even the Vietnamese people won't go through this part of the jungle. The decision is made to take the shortcut. But there are Viet Cong soldiers passing through the area, so they have to wait until dark for the coast to clear. In the meantime, their point man goes ahead to scout out the river. When he comes back, he's white as a sheet and tells the CO about something huge in the water. If they're going to do this, they'd better do it quietly. Keep in mind that to get their whole platoon and all of their gear across that river means hours of repeated trips through the water. They start crossing the river under the cover of night, trying to be all stealthy, but not really achieving that goal, when they hear this weird, almost alien noise, like a trumpet, but not quite. It's unlike anything that Ken has ever heard. At first, everyone kind of brushes it off as some jungle animal, but then they spot these massive shapes moving under the water. And the sounds keep coming. They sound like they're coming from the river, but it's hard to tell for sure. Everyone is on edge. The only thing Ken sees as he slogs back and forth from bank to bank is on one trip, a huge dark shadow appears under him, but then vanishes again in just a second. So they manage to get everything over to the other side, and the point man is put on watch so everyone else can get a little sleep. Not long after they all settle down and close their eyes, they hear noises and screams coming from closer to the river. They run to check out what's going on, only to find out that several of their men are gone, including their point man. And by the looks of it, they've been dragged into the water. Before they can even react, these gigantic reptilian monsters, roughly 10 feet tall, start coming out of the water. We're talking about creatures straight out of a nightmare, towering over them with scales and teeth, looking like some kind of human alligator hybrid that seems to have acquired the taste for human flesh. The platoon freaks out and starts shooting at these things, but it's like their bullets are just bouncing off. These creatures are not just tough, they're like something out of a legend, picking off Ken's buddies one by one, dragging them into the river. They're in full panic mode now, everyone scrambling to get as far away from the river as possible, firing blindly towards the water. But these things are relentless. Every time it looks like they've killed one, another one rises out of the water to take its place. What remains of Ken's platoon all run into the jungle for cover, where they have no choice but to wait, enduring the screams of their friends as they're being eaten until help can come in the morning. By the time dawn breaks and they're finally able to call for help, half the platoon is gone, just vanished or left in pieces of bone and flesh on the riverbank. Ken said he never believed in monsters before that night, But what he saw in the river that night changed him. So next time you think about going for a swim in some exotic river, remember Ken's story. You never know what's waiting just under the surface. So this wild story comes from a Ukrainian army officer and took place nearly 10 years ago. He didn't want to give his name, so let's just call him Cap. Cap is part of the Ukrainian Air Assault Forces, specifically the 79th Airborne Brigade. These guys have been totally in the thick of it since 2014, battling it out and holding their ground against the pro-Russian forces. In 2015, Cap's squad is tasked with a medevac mission near a town called Ilovaisk, deep in the Donetsk region. They had to secure a spot for their field medics to work their magic, which they did, saving some seriously injured guys with just the basics. Afterward, they're heading back to Mariupol, about 60 miles southwest of their position, transporting 2 wounded privates to a hospital. And that's when all hell breaks loose. Just a couple of minutes into their trip, with trees lining the road, they suddenly get hammered by enemy fire. Turns out they've run right into a Russian sabotage and reconnaissance group lying in wait. These Russian guys are no amateurs. They go after Cap's assault vehicles, not the medevac vehicles. Maybe they figure whoever's in there is in no condition to fight anyway. Who knows? The assault vehicles, a pair of BTR-80s, which are armored personnel carriers with a gun turret on the top, are basically these old rusty tanks on wheels from the Soviet era. And I'm using the term armored very loosely. And they are getting pounded with heavy machine gun fire, totally blindsided. So Cap yells to the medevac vehicle, "Get out of here!" so they can at least have a fighting chance of getting the wounded to the hospital in Mariupol. And Cap gets on the horn to call in backup. But the Russians are not messing around. They decide to up the ante and roll out this beast called a bumblebee. Take a missile and combine it with a flamethrower. This thing unleashes a firestorm like you would not believe. One of Cap's BTRs gets hit straight on, and it's a nightmare. His guys are trapped inside this giant fireball. And just like that, half of Cap's team is dead. It's chaos, and Cap's trying to tell his driver to get them the hell out of Dodge. He has no idea where this attack is coming from. They are just fish in a barrel. In a last-ditch effort, Cap's radioing in their position to get some artillery support, but then, bam! His BTR takes a hit. By some miracle, it's not a direct hit, but now they're in a fireball from hell. Cap's got no choice but to get his guys out of the truck and into the trees, praying backup arrives before the enemy does. But then, everything just stops. Dead silence. The sudden quiet throws Cap off balance as he's desperately trying to figure out where this attack is coming from, when pandemonium erupts again, but not at them. This time, it's loud screaming and chaotic gunfire coming from the other side of the road, just a few feet inside the tree line. Seconds tick by with this other battle raging, and then nothing. Silence again. It's like the Russians got hit by something, but it wasn't Cap's backup. Cap and his men stay still in the bizarre silence for 15 minutes, just waiting for the next hail of bullets to start shredding the trees above their heads. But the attack never comes. When their real backup finally rolls in, tanks, medevacs, the whole 9 yards, there is no resistance. It's like the enemy just vanished into thin air. Cap and his squad move in to check out the scene where the Russian soldiers are. And they're thinking they must have retreated or something, but nope. They find all 8 of them dead, still in their fighting positions. It's like a horror movie scene. It's a total bloodbath. They start checking the bodies for any clues or intel. And then they start looking at their wounds to try to piece together what happened to them. Each Russian soldier had been shot multiple times, but it wasn't Cap's guys who did it. They were all shot by each other. In the middle of winning the fight, they just offed each other. Now, there's no official record of this incident. It's just another brutal day in the hellish year of 2015 for the Ukrainian army. And Cap, who still has scars on his face from the 2nd and 3rd degree burns he got that day, has been racking his brain for years, trying to figure out why a bunch of hardened pro soldiers would suddenly snap and kill each other. None of it makes any sense. The site was clean with no signs of anyone else being there, just the dead Russian soldiers and their gear. The only shell casings found were right there around all the bodies. They had plans, ammo, and even a couple of more bumblebees. Everything they needed to wipe out Cap's unit and vanish. But instead, they turned on each other at point-blank range with fully automatic weapons. Now, there are a couple of theories as to what happened. 1, a direct order. Why? 2, psychological warfare? Against who? And to send what message? But nothing adds up. The whole thing just seems like some freak mental breakdown, all of them snapping at once. But why? In a situation they were clearly winning. Some of the soldiers who lived through that day believed that they were saved by nothing less than the hand of God. The soldier recounting the events of this encounter doesn't give his name, so we're going to call him Mike. Quantico Marine Base. Over 86 square miles of various training facilities, not only for the Marines, but the FBI and the DEA as well. Mike has been an MP at Quantico for about 2 years when this story takes place. And whenever he's on the night shift, he always raises his hand for roving unit duty. Basically, that means he gets to drive around that 86 square miles of training areas, forests, lakes, unused back roads, and old cemeteries, along with plenty of forgotten training areas dating back to World War II. The area is so massive, it would take 2 or 3 hours just to drive around it. And his shifts are like 10 hours long, but he likes it because it gives him the opportunity to check out promising spots to hunt or fish on his days off. He's the only one out there, so he can pretty much go wherever and do whatever he wants. Mike is not a stranger to the woods or the outdoors. He grew up running around and hunting in the mountains of Southern California when he was a kid, including a ton of nights out camping by himself in his teens. So there's not much out there in nature that freaks him out. One night in November, it's already dark when he starts heading up to a far-off training area. He's got a tree stand out there with a trail cam, and he wants to check it out and see if the camera has anything interesting on it. To get up there, you got to drive about 30 minutes up one road and then another 15 on another road until you hit this long dirt road. Around in this area, communications always suck, which means his radio usually doesn't work, which means he's pretty much on his own. Mike parks his Durango on an offshoot road, grabs his flashlight, and starts heading into the creek bottom about a mile or so off the road. And he's done this a ton of times, so it doesn't take him long to get to his spot. He grabs the chip out of the trail cam and hops up into his tree stand to pop it into his laptop and take a look. Not even 5 minutes into flipping through the pictures, most of which are just some turkeys hanging around, he hears someone walking through the woods about 30 yards in front of him. Now, considering he's patrolling one huge military training facility, having some officer in training get lost doing night land navigation isn't all that uncommon. So he silently delights in his chance to punk and scare the crap out of this guy from up in his stand. He shuts his laptop, turns off his flashlight, and tries to see where the person is. He hears the person walk closer and closer and then stop about 20 yards in front of him. At that point, his eyes have adjusted to the dark and the moon's pretty bright, so he can make out the outline of what looks like a deer. Damn. But Mike is kind of curious as to where it's heading, so he stays super quiet so he doesn't spook it. He watches the deer walk up to a tree and start slamming its head into the tree over and over until its entire skull cap is crushed and is leaking blood and brain matter. As Mike is just sitting there in shock, the deer stands up on its hind legs and turns towards Mike, staring directly at him, even though its eyes are now clearly useless. It speaks in the clearest voice Mike has ever heard in his life.
I know you're there.
Mike's stomach drops, but he's so frozen in fear he can't even think about drawing his gun. And as quickly as it had walked up, the deer creature drops back down onto all fours and walks away. Mike waits about 10 minutes, trying to reclaim some control over his shaking body before he leaves all of his stuff, including his laptop, climbs down from the stand, books it back to his patrol car, and grabs his shotgun. He gets back in his car, tears out of there, and spends the rest of the night in the lit parking lot of the base grocery store. Takes about a month before Mike can muster up the courage to go back and grab his laptop and stuff that was still in the tree stand. He makes sure to bring a friend. Doesn't tell the friend what happened, but tells him to bring his rifle. When they get there, Mike grabs his stuff and looks toward the area where he saw whatever that thing was. The tree is busted up with splinters everywhere and what looks like bone fragments and blood still splattered everywhere. Needless to say, Mike doesn't go checking out stuff in the middle of the night anymore, and he hunts on the complete opposite side of the base. Anytime he does need to go out to that area now, he always takes a shotgun in condition 1. Safety on, but a round in the chamber. This hair-raising tale comes from a Reddit poster named Creepy Reddit Loner about his dad that we're going to call Ron. Ron does a stint in Vietnam, but now the war is over, so he gets reassigned to a desolate Air Force base in Greenland. I wonder who he pissed off. The blizzards in this place are so fierce, they have to string cables between the buildings. And if you are unfortunate enough to have to go outside, you have to clip yourself onto the line with a carabiner because the whiteout conditions are so bad. Men get lost and freeze to death just a few yards from the building. So when the blizzards come, every building takes a head count to make sure everyone is accounted for, and the base goes into lockdown. Now, during these blizzard lockdowns, something unexplainable happens. Every time the wind howls and visibility drops to 0, they hear these terrifying screams like nothing anyone has ever heard before. Everyone on base is accounted for, so there's no way they're going outside to check. Out loud, the theory is that it must be some kind of animal. But deep down, everyone knows that ain't it. But here's where it gets really strange. After these storms, the engine room is a total disaster zone with tools scattered, heavy machinery moved or damaged. Once, they even find a massive jet engine weighing thousands of pounds smashed on the other side of the room. They check the cameras and there's nothing. No signs of entry, no animals, no people, no anything. And the higher ups are in an uproar because this isn't just a small-time mystery. Not only is it a major security concern, but it's keeping the base from performing their missions and screwing with the civilian research that's supposed to be going on. They fly in all of these experts, scientists and engineers, you name it, but nobody can figure out what's going on. And the weirdness doesn't stop there. A U-2 spy plane packed with all sorts of classified gear is found powered up and systems engaged. This is not just a matter of flipping a switch. These are intricate, specialized systems that only a select few people know how to operate. Then there are these barrels of hydraulic fluid that just vanish into thin air. And the screaming? Well, it's very erratic, so it's not likely that it's wind or an animal sound. Even the base's control room picks up bizarre interference and strange readings during these incidents that they can't replicate or explain. It's as if someone or something is just messing with them. Ron, who's as grounded as they come, can't deny the chills down his spine when he remembers his time there. This wasn't just some grease monkeys getting spooked. This was a base full of highly trained military personnel left scratching their heads, wondering if they were part of a real-life X-Files episode. Like, just being in the military isn't hard enough, but then you have to deal with this kind of stuff? No, thank you. Special thanks to all of the men and women who have or are serving in the military, who put their lives on the line every day to make sure we are safe here at home. We are grateful for your service and your sacrifice. Let me know in the comments if you liked these stories, because there are a ton of them out there, so I can certainly bring you more. But until I can do that, go ahead and watch this one right here to keep your creepy fest rockin' on. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.